and I hit the stream, and YouTube is loading up, and we should be live.
Good
So,
morning, good morning, good morning. Happy Sunday,
Good
everybody,
morning.
my galactic brothers and sisters. Welcome back to a planetary headquarters live stream brought to you by the Legacy Foundation for Human Progress, the Legacy FHP, that's us. My sinuses are a little bit clogged right now, so try to ignore that. I might sound a little nasally, but that's just me channeling the higher beings so I could get more information to you guys. So ignore that if you can. And I might be coughing a couple times, but whatever. The weather's getting gnarly. Welcome back. If you are a returning viewer, again, welcome back. Happy to see you. Happy that we could share this moment together. And if you are a new viewer, a new watcher, welcome. I do want to remind you to brush up against that subscribe button so that you are up to date with all the celestial broadcasts, because this is very important. It's very important. The powers that be aren't going to spread this message. The revolution will not be televised. That's funny because that was before social media, and now we can do it on our own. So it takes people like us, you, to start getting the message out. And that's what we're doing today. That's all we're doing. We don't like to take sides politically. We don't like to, red versus blue, that kind of stuff. We're kind of neutral in that. We belong to the cosmic organization, so that's our viewpoint. But we do want to talk a little bit about the elephant in the room. USAID.
USAID?
Yeah, USAID. It's gnarlier than I ever could have imagined. It's almost like a conspiracy theorist wet dream. Um,
Yeah.
They can't. It's insane that this is the very first time these receipts have been seen by the public since the inception of the United States. Like, this has been a black hole, the secret vault. If you want to see the receipts, if you want to see the transactions on where the government's actually spending taxpayer money, you have to go there. And it was a privately, very secluded organization with appointed members, and the powers that be had it on lock. And they were spending taxpayers' money with no oversight, just doing whatever they want to, and keeping it shielded from the public. The rich families that controlled all the military industrial complex, all the CIA, all these people, they were keeping it a secret. And finally, we're getting access into where the money's actually going. Now, you can, what is it? Love the sinner, not the sin. Like, I like what Elon Musk is doing, but I am not a personal fan of Elon Musk. I have a lot more other quibs with him, but I think what he is doing is a step forward in the progress of human government and planetary government. So I can't knock him for that. Same with Trump, I don't think he's a clown, but he's doing some stuff that I have to agree with. Like, it doesn't matter, and that's the stuff. That's the thing we need to start putting aside. Like, we can't just be like, he's on that team, everything he says is bad. Like, people have a different color taste than me. People have a different food taste than me. Does that mean I'm going to not listen to their opinion on other matters? No, that's stupid. That would be dim of me, closed-minded of me. So, like, orange hair, bad. Elon Musk, good. Like stop. We need to stop thinking like that. We need to stop being so polarized, and we need to start seeing truthful actions and positive actions for what they are. Because ultimately, this is all just a stepping stone in the process to getting reintegrated with the Galactic Federation, with getting planet Earth welcomed with open arms by our celestial brothers. And in order to get to that point, we need to check off certain prerequisites. So hopefully we can get there as a species. That's why we're making this video, so that we can get the planet conscious. And I truly think we're witnessing a moment in history with this USAID spending. So I have a lot to say about it, but definitely want to hear your guys' opinions first before we start putting the tinfoil on.
It's worth considering. So, Trump and Elon they're extremely rich. They're like millionaires. I guess Elon's a billionaire.
Yeah, billies.
We are not billionaires, so there's that divide of unrelatability. But with that said, I do still think they are a more accurate representation of the people's desire for what should happen with the government. I think transparency is very important, and as wealthy entrepreneurs, it is in their interest for the government to be more transparent and more supportive of business, like local businesses, corporations, that kind of stuff. Um, all in all, I definitely see this working out for the better, but the USAID transparency is an important step because, like you were talking about, like if we are to reach a point of becoming like a planetary government in a true cosmic sense, not a creepy New World Order sense, totalitarian police state kind of thing, but actual cooperation with the entire planetary species, it takes transparency and just awareness on the part of all inhabitants of the planet. Like, um, in proportion to our involvement with the politics of the world, just what's going on, I think in proportion to that, uh, we advance as a species. I mean, I guess what I mean to say is the government is the regulative machinery of mankind. It's sort of this social machinery set in motion, and it kind of runs itself. We go in and fill in the spaces of it. We're kind of like the cells that make this organism work. But this machine can kind of run off course. We can let it run awry, and kind of trample over us. That's what you've seen in history whenever people have tried to overthrow their government because of corruption. Then through something like communism, they're like, we all want to benefit. Then they overthrow the crooked leaders, and some crooked new gangsters step in, take over the government, and the government just seizes control over all the citizens. Like the Chinese Cultural Revolution was a great example of that. And that's what happens, I think, when you allow government to pretty much dictate where you go, what you do. Um, Now, the direction I see this country heading in, ideally, especially if we can all get on board with it, is all of us becoming more independent, less reliant on the government. And all this government spending, all this USAID, a lot of it's going into programs that kind of cater to us and to our laziness, um, to our incapabilities and all that. And I mean that's really, I think, the most important point in the whole USAID discussion is like we should be aware of where all the money is getting channeled to because we pay taxes on this stuff. Um, Large portions of our paycheck get taken out every single paycheck, year after year, and a lot of this money goes towards things we really don't have any knowledge or awareness of what it's actually contributing towards. So it'd be great if our taxes actually went towards something useful, especially if I mean, just imagine if we could actually have more of a say in what our taxes are going to. 'Cause I do see value in taxes. I'm not going to say we should all stop paying taxes. Maybe unless the government reaches like peak corruption, let's all stop paying taxes. That would end the government. But as long as we have a say in the government, taxes are very useful. We get highways built, infrastructure, we get power lines erected, all that kind of stuff. Um, there's there's a tremendous amount of benefits that can happen when we pull all our money together. But no doubt, as I know y'all are itching to get into, there there are many kind of leeches that latch onto this blood current of money and will siphon out money, especially like USAID money, which sucks because it's humanitarian aid. It goes towards people who need it most. And then, meanwhile, while we're pumping money all across the world, we have like disasters here in America, wildfires, hurricanes, and all that left and right, and not nearly enough getting done about it.
Yeah, I
That's
can.
just.
Oh, sorry. If you're finished there, I can go
I
into
was just gonna say
riff on
that's
some
just
thoughts here.
absolutely, yeah. I was just gonna say that's just scratching the surface. I mean, that's not even considering the uh, secret UAP crash retrieval programs and all that we don't know about.
Yeah. So obviously, for all the viewers out there, on this channel, I think all three of us, this is probably true that we've gotten a little more interested in government and security subcommittee hearings and revamping systems because of the UFO debacle
Yeah.
that is currently happening, with Congress over the last couple of years. Them getting introduced to this idea that untold billions of taxpayer money is going into the Pentagon and being split out into basically special access programs or black budget programs, um, with in regard to like UFO crash retrieval, reverse engineering. I mean, even the 2017 story that the New York Times broke was shocking because it was even a small amount of money. It was only $22 million that went to the like ATIP program, and there's some other acronyms and stuff. That sort of that the original story
Small
where the
amount.
money meant, a small amount of 22 million, and some of that was going to Bigelow Aerospace, for
Hmm.
I think that involved, the Skinwalker Ranch was also a part of
Hmm.
that sort of 22 million. Harry Reid had sort of initiated that funding, and that's a whole story that kind of broke. And so it was just a very big surprise to the USA at large when they were told that we had this UFO program, because it Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, advanced aerospace. It's things in the air, unidentified flying objects. They called them UAP. It specifically had this connotation that it was basically another UFO program. And in the past, it was like something in the 70s when the last official UFO program had ended, and they officially announced that there was nothing really to it, that there was no evidence for extraterrestrial life. And that was called Project Blue Book. Now, get this,
Mm.
the like one of the lead scientists on Project Blue Book, named James Allen Hynek, um, even though in his official capacities when he was on Project Blue Book, his announcements were basically in line with that official story of no extraterrestrial evidence. However, once that ended, James himself went on to write books about the UFO stuff that basically gave a very different perspective and showed that he actually was a believer that there was a non-human aspect to a certain percentage of these sightings. And so it just gives you a perspective of like the official government, talk and news report versus um, like the boots on the ground opinion of like people that are actually looking into this deeply. And so right now, to swing this back to USAID and government, which I'm not super up to date on, but obviously there's a lot of like digging going on in government. With every new administration comes the opportunity to try and institute new changes. And this season has some pretty interesting changes. Tech billionaire Elon
Oh
Musk
yeah.
is serving in now like a governmental role, and it's super controversial. Now, here's what I'll say that I like about Elon Musk. I like that he's definitely an innovator, and he's obviously proven himself in creating companies that are like on the edge of the future, bringing the future to us. With sort of pioneering the electric cars, and the manufacturing process necessary to complete that, and obviously SpaceX. This is another really big, like, NASA used to be the official, and we'd spend a lot of money giving it to NASA to launch rockets. However, I think it was during the Obama administration, with the rise of SpaceX, they were able to make better rockets for way cheaper. And they basically, Obama was like, okay, let's integrate the private sector into our,
Hmm.
instead of just paying NASA to create rockets, because what they're doing, the private sector is doing something, way better. And so that was actually the rise of SpaceX, and also some of the other companies. Jeff Bezos has one. There's some other billionaires that have companies, and yeah, to me, that's real innovation. That's progress. That is the
Yeah.
speeding up of the time it takes us
100%.
to maximize space. So of all the concepts rolling around, and all the hot takes and opinions about people's personal characters, the work that Elon has completed is definitely important. Take away his personal ego, and what he has been able to accomplish is absolutely exciting. Even this idea of going to Mars, and maybe that will be expedited, with his current sort of association with the administration. So I think that that's all stuff to be excited about. But
No doubt.
government politics talk as a whole, uh, I do, I guess, have some critiques in that
Mm.
a lot of people like basically pick a side and then they just complain about the other side.
Yeah, yeah.
And they also, the common mainstream individual is not really providing solutions. So I don't think we should focus our energy. I think we lose energy when we complain about things without actually participating or talking about counter solutions, or just like
Yeah, yeah.
letting people play out their ideas. Like, look, this is the system that we have. It changes every certain amount of years. Like, the reason it's set up is that so people can institute new changes and ideas, and like you gotta give them the room to do that. You can't change anything by
Absolutely.
complaining, but what you can look at is uh, and hope for new potentials to arise out of this. The first iteration of every
Mm.
program is never going to be perfect, but the programs that we've established in the past were meant to solve problems in the past, and we learned from how those programs were developed. But then you have to get like new ideas and new structures and really like get in there with a magnifying glass and be like, what's working, what's not working. And sometimes, it takes a cleaning of house, and that's what Elon always does with his companies. He did it with Twitter, he did it with Tesla, does it with SpaceX. So he's implementing that sort of drastic, drastic, like zero the board and build the Avengers kind of team to try to accomplish something really big. So that's my kind of spiel on what's happening and how I like to try and take it. And yeah, so government. I'll throw it back to you guys.
Government. Well, yeah, I mean that's the beauty of representative
Government.
government. It's the beauty of representative government is that we we have like we have these different parties, and if any one given administration had just complete rule for 30 years or something like that, uh, we would kind of get stuck in one direction. But because we can change it up constantly, each new representative represents a whole different part of the population. It can kind of further their goals, their desires for that period of 4 years. And it helps maintain that balance. Ideally, if things can continue functioning smoothly, we have an accurate balance of left brain and right brain, um, in this country. Uh, but speaking on the innovations of uh, SpaceX and all that, I mean, like Captain Kirk in the comments here says NASA can't even make a space station. I mean, yeah, like you see they're kind of government funded and all that, and they haven't been able to bring those two folks back down for like months on end. They got lost in space. Um, and Andrew Lazaro here says you get the government that you want, and that's absolutely true. If we let our government walk all over us, that's the situation we end up in. But when we come together and actually take action, um, ask and you shall receive. You got to set clear intentions of what you want in the world. But what I do see with this current administration is that it is in their interest to actually kind of represent the people. I mean, like Elon Musk, I got my reservations about him as well for a few different reasons. It's easy to go down the conspiracy vibe with Elon, but I think what he did with X and Twitter was brilliant. Like actually opening it up for people to actually freely express themselves, kind of cut out the hardcore censorship that was taking place on the platform.
Yeah. I don't know. I get sketched out by a lot of this shit because when you start to unravel the crap that the intelligence agencies are capable of, you start having to play 6, 7, 8D chess in order just to stay relevant. If you're just thinking like basic level reality, then you're gonna get duped. You're being naive. These guys go so far and so deep to manipulate reality. Like Mike Bence, one of the foremost
Yeah, yeah.
speakers on this subject, talks about it being like a Truman Show. Like
Yeah,
they're the
yeah, you
Truman
said that a
Show.
few times.
They say they're literally manipulating and contriving every aspect of reality that you like. The Truman Show, for the youngsters out there, what was it, Jim Carrey, right?
Such a good
He
movie. Yeah.
he comes into this town and it's like a perfect town or whatever. I'm not going to go into the details because I haven't seen it in a while. And he eventually realizes that the town is fake, and it's set up by like what government operatives or like some
Yeah.
show. And
Everyone in his
all
life
the
is an actor.
everyone in his life is an actor. Yes, exactly. And it's on like a movie set, and everything he believed is real is actually contrived and fake.
It's a great analogy.
So that's the analogy he's using for the United States USAID. And this isn't just to get conspiratorial, it's to understand the state of affairs on planet Earth because we need to reintegrate with the celestial organizations. But in order to do this, we need to understand who the people in charge are and what they're doing because whatever they're doing is going to dictate this integration process. So like if you met this dude and you're like, okay, I'll be friends with him. And then, after a month or two, you start seeing charges on your card or like a car bought in your name. And you're like, wait a second, this motherfucker stole my identity and is buying shit from me. And then he leaves, he ghosts you, or you guys fight and he moves on with his life. You know damn well what he's probably going to do next time, right? He just got you for frauding you, and he's going to find the next group of people and fraud them. So when you start to understand how the military industrial complex works, so you can see some actual receipts from the USAID transactions, you can start to extrapolate how they're going to keep acting with other situations, such as the UFO, the black budget. So they start to reveal their character traits. So I think by analyzing all this information that's coming from these USAID leaks, we're starting to understand how these people think and operate. And they're on like fucking cloud 20 with this shit, dude. They are Machiavellian to the T. Like they literally create turmoil in other nations so that they can get
Be the solution.
their own national interests and be the solution.
Yeah.
So it's like they don't care about the people in other countries. If there is a group that aligns with what we like, and there's groups that don't align with what we like, we try to make sure the group in that country that aligns with what we like wins. Or the group might not even align with what we like. We can just use them to further our cause. So it's like the enemy of my enemy is my friend. If there's like a communist president coming up in a specific country, and we're like, we don't like that communist guy. But let's say there's also like a Islamic terrorist organization in the country that doesn't like this communist guy. Guess what? We're going to throw money at this Islamic terrorist organization as much as we can just because we want them to overthrow the communist guys coming up in that country. These are called CIA assets or government assets. And we want to make sure we have assets in every country around the world so that if we need to, we can regime change at will. It's like just like a little press the button regime change. So we've been doing that since the beginning. We've been doing that since literally the beginning of time.
Yeah.
I'll get into it right now. I actually have a clip pulled up to explain this,
Nice.
but let's see what Taychill is pulling up right now first. Or Magma Sloth. Oh, it's Magma
Yeah,
Sloth.
I just shared an image here to kind of riff off of exactly what you're talking about here is the Hegelian dialectic. Now, if you just look at the main kind of categories here, you have an agenda, a thesis, an antithesis, and a synthesis. And this is actually a beautiful pattern. There's nothing inherently wrong with this, and I want to make that clear because I've heard this brought up a lot in the conspiratorial community, and it's actually absolutely true. The crooked use of this and the crooked application of it. But in Bill Sadler Jr.'s study of the Master Universe, he actually draws a lot of parallels to, the paradise creation of God, that perfect state as being the thesis, this imperfect evolutionary world being the antithesis. Then as we ascend up towards heaven and you have those descending sons of God coming down, we meet in the middle and make a synthesis. We kind of bridge those polarities. So there is something beautiful about that. But in a very perverse sense, this is also played out in an entirely different way. So you have an agenda, in this case, centralized power, a thesis like a manufactured terrorist threat, an antithesis being something like a repressive police state, then a synthesis being the removal of freedoms, transfer of power from the many to the few. And if you wanted to get real conspiratorial, we could speculate if something like the January 6 riots could have been like encouraged or something like that. And then the Patriot Act that allowed the government to spy on citizens and all that, arrest people for posting stuff on social media, that kind of thing, could have been the kind of response to that. That's just an example. I'm not saying I necessarily believe that's true, but there are plenty of examples of the U.S. military creating a conflict somewhere so that we can reap the benefits of it, like oil or resources, whatever it is, lithium, who knows. Um, Now, through this disclosure of the abuses of USAID, uh, we're actually finding a crap load of examples like that. And you were talking about the Mike Ben's interview. He drops a lot of wild information um, in regards to this, where you end up finding out like, holy shit, the conspiracy theorists are right.
Oh yeah. Yeah, exactly. It gets pretty deep. That's a cool. I've never heard it called that. The Hegelian or Hegelian dialectic.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty cool. Yeah. So statecraft, state fair, trying to take over the planet through manipulative means, Machiavellian means. That kind of lines up with the law of one and the Urantia book
Hmm.
talking about service to self versus service to others. Do you use your
Yeah.
personality to help others grow in their mind, body, spirit, or do you use your personality to manipulate others? So it's all about how you use your free will. God gave us free will, a beautiful gift. He gave us free will. He gave us a decision to turn against him if we wanted to. The ability to give us that decision is a great gift, a true free will where we can choose our own, make our own decisions. It's beautiful. But with that comes the ability to use this free will in a negative way, to use your free will to manipulate and take from others. And that would be what the law of one calls service to self mentality, as opposed to the Jesus way, which is using your personality to help everybody grow so that everybody
Mm.
grows at the same time at a faster speed.
There
There
you
are
go.
two conflicting ways of thinking, and you have to wholeheartedly join one. Some people call it the left-hand path versus the right-hand path. Luciferians, all that weird, distorted mess that
Yeah,
somehow
yeah.
manifests in 21st century society. But yeah, that's what it comes down to, and our planet needs to kind of strip ourselves of that type of thinking. We're getting there, and this USAID revelation is going to help us understand what we're going through. But so what I was saying with pretty much having assets in every country that at a press of a button we can regime change or create instability in that country so that we can start passing laws and pressuring the judges in those governments and prosecutors in those governments to do what we want, or to get the people literally to create a huge riot and overthrow the government and make the officials flee the country. And then it's a free open state and the US comes in. That's what we did to Syria not too long ago.
Mm.
So I got a clip pulled up if you guys can see it.
Yes.
Yep.
So this is from the Sean Ryan. And this is just a little backstory on how we actually started thinking like this. Because believe it or not, before World War II, we weren't nefarious. We weren't Machiavellian. We were actually about like trying to cultivate a good culture and help the world out. And then after World War II, we learned a lot. And then we started
Mm.
employing these tactics in weird
Oh,
ways.
yeah.
But here's a little backstory of how it actually came to be.
Mm.
So let's check it out. The volume's all the way up.
Had with his peers in 1948 when they created the function for covert action in the first place for the CIA. George Kennan was the guy who authored NSC 10-2, the National Security Memo that established the plausible deniability doctrine for the Central Intelligence Agency to do covert action, political warfare, economic sabotage, propaganda, and information black ops, the whole gamut of everything that the CIA is authorized to lie about, so that our government can deny to us and to the world that they're actually doing it. Two months before
Mm.
George Kennan authored NSC 10-2 and gave us the national security structure that we currently live under, he wrote this memo that I talk about frequently called The Inauguration of Organized Political Warfare. This was on April 30th, 1948. This was 2 weeks after the CIA's first, mostly unauthorized, covert action to rig and influence the course of and ultimately win the Italian election in Italy, which was the first election in Italy after World War II that pitted a US-backed pro-Western candidate against a communist Soviet-backed candidate. And the CIA did all sorts of dirty work in there. They had their assets stuffing ballot boxes, using mafia muscle to shut down opposition meetings. We bought the media in the region. We worked with all the religious groups and the charities. The people involved in that operation, publicly wrote in their memoirs that we would have lost that election if not for the CIA. James Woolsey even defended that regime change operation on Fox News in 2017 when he was asked, does the CIA still, Russia's meddling in our elections. We don't meddle in foreign elections. And he, said, well, we used to do that sort of thing, in Italy and in Greece. And he's referring to this event that I'm talking about. And then he said, and then she says, well, we don't do that anymore though, right? And he goes, well, chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. Only in the interests of democracy,
So
Nice.
there's a little good backstory on how this all kind of came to be. So after World War II, everybody knows about World War II. The evil versus the Allies versus the Axis powers, United States and the Allies versus the Nazis. And if everybody remembers Italy, the beautiful Italy, they actually sided with the Nazis. Benito Mussolini was their dictator, and him and Hitler were freaking best boys. Actually, Hitler broke Benito Mussolini out of jail when he got arrested at one point in time. With like the full SS, like military special operations came in and broke him out. It was pretty gnarly. But so after we won, after we took over, Italy was this kind of open state. They were coming out of fascism. And then there was a Russian guy that was popping up that was going to take over the presidency. And the United States was like, no, we need this. We need a U.S. backed democratic guy. And I guess they set up churches and charities. Those were their headquarters operating places in Italy. So they lied. They literally created churches and had agents dressed up as like priests and nuns and stuff. And they ran the operation for like buying media outlets and stuff out of those churches and charities. So that's already kind of really deceptive and kind of dirty that we're doing that. Like you're posing as churches and charities to overthrow countries. And then obviously coordinating with the Italian mafia, not something I want to go deep into, but the mob and the CIA has extremely deep ties. They helped us plan the D-Day invasion. They helped us plan how to invade Europe because a lot of the mafia bosses still had family back in Europe, and they linked up like Lucky Luciano. All these people were meeting with the heads of the CIA just to draw up plans on how to invade Europe so that we can beat the Nazis. So I guess the CIA, we won by a landslide when they started putting these charities and everything in Italy and they start buying the media companies, buying newspapers, creating their own newspapers, which by the way, in Ukraine now, 90% of the media outlets are owned by United States funding. Whatever. We'll get into that later. But so that like we learned in Italy, we won. We ended up placing our guy, beat the Russian guy. So now we have a United States Democratic backed leader in Italy. We were like, holy crap, this is our first time doing it. We learned, oh, wow, this could have a lot of value in the future. So now we start thinking, can we do this in other countries? Can we do this everywhere? And that's how this type of thinking starts happening. And I guess that's where USAID stems from. USAID stems from, was it John F. Kennedy created USAID? I think it was like he made the Green Berets a special forces. He sent, the Green Berets were just a normal army unit, and then he made them special forces. And then a couple weeks later, but then he sent the special forces into Laos to train the locals to overthrow their communist government. And he created USAID specifically to be that money laundering organization to send aid over to Laos to overthrow their government without, I think, congressional approval. Because if you don't need approval through USAID. Like it's this weird like pseudo organization where they can just pass money to people without having to go through the direct like pentagonal channels. So, and like I think their first transaction was like I'll pull up a clip in a second, but the leader of the Vietnamese militia that they were training was also the biggest heroin dealer in the area. And the CIA realized, oh, these guys are getting a lot of money to fund their own military with these drugs. It'd be great if they can keep funding themselves, maybe we can give them the means to keep selling these drugs to make this money, and we could even get a cut. So all in the interest of overthrowing communism. So they actually bought this guy 2 freaking planes. They created 2 shell companies and sold this guy 2 airplanes so that he could run his drugs and still make money off the heroin. American Gangster, Frank Lucas, anybody seen that movie? You know, definitely ties into that. Bringing heroin from Vietnam into the United States.
Ooh,
There's been a lot of whistleblowers that come out talking about this. But,
that sounds like it's worth
you know,
checking out.
oh yeah, it was crazy. So we're supplying the biggest drug dealer because he's the leader of the militia that hates the people that we hate. When we're giving him money and training him to overthrow the communist-backed Vietnamese Laotian government. So you can see how shady it's starting to get, you know? You can see
Yeah,
how
it's
gnarly, and this is the military industrial complex, the Pentagon. These are the same people that are in charge of crash retrieval, that are in charge of
mm-hmm.
the UFO programs, that are in charge of understanding the celestial presence. So, like I said, if one guy fool me once, shame on me, fool me twice, you know?
Yeah, it's really ironic that JFK kind of like laid the groundwork for a lot of deep state operations. He was kind of involved in some conspiracies himself. Then, sure enough, it seems like towards the very end of his career, towards the end of his life, he became aware of the corruption he became involved in, and he might have last minute tried to start exposing and disclosing some of this stuff. I mean, you know very well when like his final speech or one of his final speeches where he's addressing how secrecy is repugnant in this nation, you know, and he's talking about secret societies and the deep state and all that. Sure enough, showing up like
He's over here,
a week later,
the
gets his
boogeyman.
head blown open like in front of the entire public in this traumatizing way. And that gets complex with the involvement with Cuba and Cuban mobs and all that. But I'm glad you brought that up, the drug trade, because it seems like the war on drugs, a large part of that was the U.S. Military profiting off of drugs, stuff like Contra and all that. It's like, it doesn't matter what the drug is, it's more a matter of who's selling it, you know? If it's pharmaceutical companies, it's okay, you know? We can sell meth and heroin if it's in the form of Adderall and Oxycontin and all that, you know? I, I wanted to mention on the note of World War II, George Bush Jr.'s grandfather, Prescott Bush, he was involved with a lot of different companies. I think a metal fabrication company. There were some various companies that directly profited from Hitler's plans in Nazi Germany. So Prescott Bush directly funded Adolf Hitler. And if it weren't for Prescott Bush, I don't know if Hitler would have had the funds to kick off the Nazi party the way he did. So the U.S., we had our hands in that. Yeah,
Damn, that's just getting deep. Same with
pretty
Ford.
wild.
Henry Ford, same shit. He was funding both sides of the war. It's crazy. And Bayer, the medicine company, they're based in Germany.
Yeah.
Their buildings got bombed because they were making supplies for the Nazis. And then like Bayer waited like 15, 20 years for it to cool off and then sued the United States government for bombing the buildings in World War II and won the settlement and got the money back. But like you got bombed for helping the Nazis. Like
yeah, I mean I had heard Bayer and Bayer actually was utilizing like Holocaust slaves in their pharmaceutical production and all that. It's pretty gnarly.
But yeah, it gets pretty deep. Right now, shout out to the chat. Shout out to everybody watching. Got 13 viewers right now. Don't forget to press that like button if you could. Just just one little finger press. It helps us get to the front page of YouTube. So want to get the message out, all you gotta do is press that like button, baby. And don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. But yeah. So the government's doing gnarly shit. It's also creating non-government organizations, NGOs or private companies, bringing it back to Elon Musk, and that's why I'm a little sketched out. It's like, we know the government will create an NGO, which is another word for private organization. Like, because the government can't do legal things, but private companies can. Like, governments aren't supposed to experiment on their people. They're not supposed. They're held back by certain red tape and laws. So they'll create a private organization over here, and then use USAID to send money to that private organization. that's all staffed with the same members from the government organization, but now they're free to do things they couldn't do because they're now a private organization. And it's like like we were talking about before, the Patel Institute. They are a private organization that's completely funded by federal money, but they're in charge of managing all the top secret experimental labs. Like Area 51, they manage all these top secret laboratories, but it's a private organization. How the hell is a private organization that's government funded managing all this? Because it's not really a private organization. It's a government organization with a
But they can
private
play
front.
by different rules if it's a
Yes.
company or something like that. Yeah.
And that's why I'm
wasn't
sketched
it?
out about SpaceX and shit. Like, it low key
Yeah,
seems like
yeah.
that's what's happening because like
I mean,
everybody's talking about USAID, but Elon just got 38 million in, I think, I don't want to say USAID money, or it could be USAID money in the past like week for SpaceX. So it's like, and he came out of nowhere, kind of, competing with NASA. Seems like the military industrial complex kind of like created this or backed him, and most of his contracts are government money. Like he's like a very huge government contractor. So it's like, like how not shady is he really,
yeah.
And we also know that there's different factions within the CIA itself that are fighting over each other, Maybe some want disclosure, some don't. And they're still all in the deep black budget state. Maybe there is two factions of the deep state and Elon Musk represents one of them. And they're just, how he's a troll and trolling all the time. Maybe he's trolling the other deep state actors and he's like, I'm in control now, And we're seeing different factions fight for control over the USAID blob Truman Show.
A blob, yeah.
Mike Benz talks about.
Yeah, with SpaceX and then with the recent Tesla bomber. I know y'all had on Justin and Mason and Brandon several episodes ago talking about that, and that guy's email he had sent to the dude that was on Sean Ryan, kind of covering it. Let's see. Your video went out. Okay, cool. I'm like, oh crap, here I go again. It was interesting because that guy's claims was that there has been a secret anti-gravity technology program. This anti-gravity technology was taken from crash retrieval programs, kind of deconstructed, cannibalized, and that the U.S., China, Russia, a lot of these big players all have their kind of secret anti-gravity technology they're working with. And so it was interesting to see the Tesla bomber blow up a Tesla truck in front of the Trump Tower as if it was a direct personal message to the new administration.
Right.
Like, y'all got to disclose this stuff. Otherwise, can we trust you? Because I would be curious to see if, maybe Tesla releases a new anti-gravity flying car or something like that and they take credit for it or something like that.
Yeah,
I know.
No, that makes sense. Now that message is hitting even harder now that they're doing what they're doing. They're unveiling the USA. Now you go back and be like, Tesla truck in front of the Trump Tower, anti-grav. What is the message that's being sent?
Premonitions.
Here? So, yeah, exactly right. Nostradamus in the building, but yeah.
It sounded like you had another clip loaded up. I'll just let you know. I also got a clip from that interview. I can play later whenever. I also got something I could show real quick here, since we're on this topic.
Yep. Well, I was just gonna say something. Actually, I have a quote.
Go for it. Oh yeah.
Techo, if you want, from the Uranta book, paper 12, 7, 11. I think all of this stuff we're talking about, we're not just over here having a little conspiratorial tea party, even though we kind of are. Excuse me, sinus is acting up. But this is important to talk about and to understand so that we can overcome the obstacles that are allowing us to get into the Galactic Federation, the universal government, the kingdom of heaven, call it what you want. It's inevitable. We're going to integrate with them. So we need to start going from like man-made government, man-made religion, and man-made philosophy to cosmic government, cosmic religion, and cosmic philosophy. These are the aspects we need to start thinking through. You hear us talk about it all the time. We call it triosophy. thinking in threes, thinking in the lens of mind, body, and spirit, or thinking in the lens of thing, meaning, and value, religion, science, and philosophy. But the quicker every single person can start, Jesus Christ, I can't even breathe out of my nose right now. Oh,
You can
I
do
feel
it.
yeah. I went through this
yeah, the
colds on a
quickest.
couple streams before too.
Yeah, the quickest we can, the quicker every single person could get to this point in thinking, understanding, and practicing, the quicker our planet evolves. Okay, that's why we're making this broadcast. So every single person needs to start processing at this level. It's not something you can just say, oh, the people over there got it, I'm going to sit back and keep watching TikTok. No, we really need to put conscious effort into integrating everybody. Our planet is one social memory complex. We're all a society, and all of our thoughts amalgamated dictate what level of progress we are on planet Earth. So if you're choosing not to integrate, not to understand, you're the reason we're getting held back. So yes, we are having a conspiratorial tea party in a way, but we really are trying to get you to see that you are experiencing in real time the process of a normal planetary society overcoming and shedding these negative aspects of themselves in order to start thinking on a cosmic level. Because I'm sure all these other planets had to go through similar processes like this. So it's just growing pains. That's it. And before you know it, we'll be kicking it with the Pleiadians. No big deal. But this is a little paragraph
Okay.
that I feel like highlights what I'm kind of trying to talk about. So this is from the Urantia book. It is transmitted text from celestial beings, and it gives you some insight on ET government. It gives you some insight on the Galactic Federation and cosmic philosophy, what the actual ETs themselves believe in and how they look at reality. I believe it has a lot of value, so let's check it out what it has to say right here. From paper 12, The Universe of Universes. It says, brotherhood constitutes a fact of relationship between every personality in universal existence. No person can escape the benefits or the penalties that may come as a result of relationship to other persons. The part profits or suffers in measure with the whole. The good effort of each man benefits all men. The error or evil of each man augments the tribulation of all men. As moves the part, so moves the whole. As the progress of the whole, so the progress of the part. The relative velocities of part and whole determine whether the part is retarded by the inertia of the whole or is carried forward by the momentum of the cosmic brotherhood. That's what it is right there. That's just a quick paragraph talking about the part and the whole, no matter what we are integrated. And it doesn't even talk about on a planetary level. This paragraph talks about on a cosmic level. So I know it sounds gnarly, but I'm going to paint a mental picture in your head. Think of 1,000 planets, or think of all the planets in the cosmos, however you want to picture it. Every planet, maybe life and evolution starts at a different time. Some planets are older than others, some planets are younger than others. We're on a relatively young planet at the moment. But apparently, the universe is like a cosmic video game, and levels can be unlocked. And according to the Celestials, the next level of the cosmos will only get unlocked when every planet has hit their mind, body, spirit potentials. So, literally, just like I said, if you're not trying to focus and integrate this in your mind, body, spirit, you're holding up everybody else on planet Earth. They're bringing it to the next stage. They're saying if you're holding your planet up, you're holding up the entire cosmic stage. So that next level does not get unlocked until every planet is on that level. So it's the part and the whole. You can't think of yourself as separate. You could only move fast as your slowest man, right? So like we need to get our planet up to tip-top shape, or else we're holding back everybody else in the cosmos. And I don't know about you, but that's a shitty feeling.
Yeah.
You don't want to be the reason why everybody else is fucking up and getting held back. It makes you feel like shit. So let's work on it. That's why we're having these conversations, and I cannot fucking breathe. So
Well,
Not
that's
and
right
not
though.
I was gonna say not to use a guilt motivation. I'm not a big proponent of
yeah,
we need to be better because we're holding back the cosmos, because that I think it puts an unnecessary pressure in that Yes,
Mm,
our planet is behind on its spiritual evolution and thus imbalanced with its material technology evolution. However, the point of the cosmos is not actually like we did not start out as utopia like a lot of religionists believe that we fell from utopia.
mm,
Earth and the time space universe always like starts from the lowest origin points of tiny animals with tiny brains, you know, and then
mm,
they get to a point of complexity through intelligent evolution and genetic alteration and sort of a life program which is managed by intelligent beings, until they can support basically a higher level of consciousness, a level of self-awareness, and then more importantly, a level of God awareness, the capacity to really connect with the cosmic mind circuits, connecting us back to the spiritual source of all personality and mind. And so the time space universe is sort of like, you know, God is sort of inherently perfect, but the creation of time space is sort of like the infinite potential, you know, in all the infinite potentials of what might happen. You know, you consider the time space universe. Here's what it's like for something to start out imperfect, but to get to perfection. So our goal is to
mm.
get to a perfect balance of all things, material, spiritual, you know, mind, body, and spirit. So, yeah, but you know, in the greater picture of the whole, um, we should, as a planet, want to get get our, I guess you could say, you know, get our shit together and really become working as one family unit as a planet, in order that we may um, become ready to interact with these other galactic civilizations and also receive assistance and help and technological help from them, and a sharing of some amount of ideas and resources. However, it has to be in a healthy and open manner and not the secretive manner which has been totally managed by, you know, the national security state, um, and has basically created is fueling a very fear-fed narrative. So
Mm.
yeah, this is like a big project as a whole, but you know, don't waste too much time, you know, waddling in guilt because you're here on this channel, you know how to be better. We're talking about the ways to be
That's
better.
right.
You're if you're aware of it and you're looking for it, you're gonna find it. So that's my message to you guys.
Amen to that. I mean, yeah, a convoy can only move as fast as the slowest vehicles in the back. So it's up to
Yep.
us as a race to uplift those of us that are kind of falling behind. Ideally, that's what USAID is for. Um, we're doing our best. Uh, the United States, kind of as this world police force kind of ideology, we are trying to kind of uplift uh, any other country that's struggling. Of course, most of the time there is some kind of incentive for us to do so. There's something we get out of it. But that's why we've been involved in Ukraine, the uh, Israeli Palestinian conflict, all that kind of stuff, and just a lot of third world countries. Now it's debatable, if we should be spending that much money uh, on foreign affairs, but you can actually see here. I got up on my screen here. These kind of budget overviews of the United States military, all branches. You can actually find these every single year. They release these, and it just goes over the budget of the military spending, everything
But
they.
just a bunch of lies. It's like 200 pages of lies.
Yeah, it's everything they're spending their money on. They'll show how many jets and missiles they're purchasing, which is a lot of missiles and a lot of jets. Um,
I bet. I bet.
and it's all kind of itemized here. If I kind of scroll down here to, let's see, right around here. Yeah.
And what's funny is that like U.S. aid, it sounds so nice, like oh, aid from the U.S., but it's a play on words. It's not actually U.S. aid. U.S. aid stands for the U.S. Agency for International Development. So it's not even aid. It's just like
international development. That's right. That's why some, I had kind of wondered why you sometimes hear people refer to it as USAID. They don't just say USAID
yeah,
because it's easier to say because it's a play on words. It is aid we're providing, but there's a little nuance there. With the
yeah.
acronym, the government loves their acronyms. Everything must be an acronym. You can see here on this chart, just for example, the active Air Force has like 212 $0.6 billion going towards it. Space Force has allocated 29.6 billion, which is interesting. I have actually seen commercials recruiting for the Space Force. So what are they up to? But in the 80s, there was this document that came out revealing $35 billion in defense programs invisible. And the Pentagon consistently fails audits.
They've never passed an audit.
They've never passed an audit. That's right.
Yeah.
Based on some leaked information by Edward Snowden, we have kind of a more
Ooh,
recent estimate
shout out.
here. U.S. National Intelligence has $52.6 billion of black budget money. And this kind of shows where it's going, like 14.7 billion towards the CIA. We got money going to the NSA, and so on and so on. But there is a lot of money unaccounted for. Now, this new kind of program, Doge, which is kind of a big troll operation, the Department of Government Efficiency. This is actually a list of all 2,600 programs under scrutiny. There's a lot here. There's a lot to look at here. Now, ideally, a lot of the black budget programs should be under scrutiny as well. But I do see a lot of value in trying to cut some of this money going to a lot of unnecessary programs, and that money could be reallocated towards very good causes. So we'll see how that pans out. But this was a list just uploaded at whitehouse.gov. And there are some wild examples here, like $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workspaces and business communities, $70,000 for production of a DEI musical in Ireland, $2.5 million for electric vehicles for Vietnam, $47,000 for a transgender opera in Colombia, $32,000 for a transgender comic book in Peru. And it just kind of goes on and on. We got $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. We got hundreds of thousands of dollars for a nonprofit linked to designated terrorist organizations, even after an inspector general launched an investigation. Millions to EcoHealth Alliance, which was involved in research at the Wuhan lab. Hundreds of thousands of meals that went to Al-Qaeda affiliated fighters in Syria. Hundreds of millions of dollars to fund irrigation channels, farming equipments, and even fertilizer use to support the unprecedented poppy cultivation and heroin production in Afghanistan, benefiting the Taliban. The list literally goes on and on.
That's literally a step out of the playbook from the Vietnam era. Remember? In Vietnam, we protect the poppy fields, let them cultivate it. We did the same thing in Afghanistan. My homie's a Marine I went to high school with, and he said half his deployment was dedicated to guarding poppy fields.
That's interesting. That's really
and
cool.
that's that like 95% of the world's heroin comes from those regions. And if you do the timing right, that's when we had our opium epidemic. Remember?
That's right.
We had the Oxycontin epidemic. Yep. Right when we were guarding all the poppy fields. And I guess we were taking that heroin and bringing it back to the medical labs to synthesize Oxycontin.
And then, sure enough, like with USAID, there's a lot of money that goes out. Mike Binns goes into great detail about this. Money that will go out to something like an earthquake in Haiti, for example. And as that money goes out, it stops by these different people, and each person kind of takes a little bit of the cut so that by the time the money actually gets there, it's greatly diminished from what those people were actually supposed to receive. Here's a funny little snippet from this goofball Elon Musk here in the White House with his little kid, and he's talking about one of the programs under scrutiny is paperwork filed for retirement, and it's not so much about the money getting sent here, but the inefficiency of how it's processed.
Also, another crazy thing. So one of the things is like we are trying to sort of right-size the federal bureaucracy, just make sure that this, obviously there need to be a lot of people working for the federal government, but not as many as currently. So we're saying, well, okay, well, if people can retire, with full benefits,
Copywriting.
that would be good. They can retire, get their retirement payments, everything. And then we were told, this is actually, I think, a great anecdote, because we were told the most number of people that could retire possibly in a month is 10,000. We're like, well, why is that? Well, because all the retirement paperwork is manual on paper. It's manually calculated, then written down on a piece of paper. Then it goes down a mine. And I'm like, what do you mean a mine? Like, yeah, there's a limestone mine where we store all the retirement paperwork. And you look at a picture of this mine. We'll post some pictures afterwards. And this mine looks like something out of the 50s because it was started in 1955. So it looks like it's like a time warp. And then the speed, the limiting factor is the speed at which the mine shaft elevator can move determines how many people can retire from the federal government.
So what he's talking about here, this mine, it's actually a pretty cool facility. I'm really interested in all these deep underground military bunker kind of facilities like Cheyenne Mountain. This one's called Iron Mountain. These are massive water reservoirs used for cooling.
That's so cool.
And they have pumps and all that. Yeah, it's pretty cool engineering.
That's where
project.
the Nazi Palladian aliens are.
Yeah, and I got mad
on that,
respect for all that. There's actually a tour available. You can kind of see their operations and what they're up to. But the problem here is that is paperwork getting manually stored down here. Obviously, they needed a vast facility to store this much paperwork, and it's all just kind of manually processed, which takes freaking forever. So that's the idea, is we're trying to increase efficiency and really narrow down our awareness of where money is going. And I would be really curious to see, I'm doubtful if we'll see it, but within the next 4 years, if we can get more information on what money is actually going to black budget programs and UAP crash retrieval programs and stuff like that, because there's a crap load of money going to Los Alamos and Lockheed and all these facilities that are working on top secret technology and all that.
Yeah, I just put in the chat one of the mission patches for the National Reconnaissance Organization, the NRO.
Whoa, the dragon.
See that? Yeah.
That's interesting.
They have a couple different iterations of it. Yeah, like the dragon overwatching Earth.
How conspiratorial should we get with this?
I know, right? Because we know the Keys of Enoch says the Alpha Draconis is where the negative entities come from.
Well, that's
and
what
your antibook calls the Satan, Lucifer, Galactic triad, the dragon. So it's
exactly, yeah.
That's another angle to throw this in there, because now that we're talking about it, and it's just an open conversation, guys. You guys have an idea, throw it in the chat. But now let's talk about. So we're over here talking on the planetary level, like the United States has assets on different countries to overthrow that country's government if we don't like it. Now let's talk about the war in heaven. There is a cosmic government, and every sector of the universe has a leader over it. And all these leaders report to the president, which is Jesus. So Jesus or Michael, same person, are in charge of the entire local universe. About 250,000 years ago, the leader of our sector, Lucifer, rebelled against this cosmic government, and he wanted to create his own government of planets. He had an associate who he put in charge of our planet. His name was Caligastia. And his co-worker was Satan. Let's put it that way. So you heard of Satan, probably not heard of Caligastia, but he's associated with them. And then Lucifer. They said they want to take planet Earth away from the universal government. Okay. Jesus came 2,000 years ago to reestablish the Galactic Fed, to reestablish the kingdom of heaven on Earth. But Lucifer, Satan, and Caligastia, they don't want the kingdom of heaven established on Earth. So they're doing every single thing they can to prevent that Galactic Federation from landing. Because if the Galactic Federation or the kingdom of heaven establishes on planet Earth, Lucifer and Satan lose control. They're out of the game. So it's just like they are using nefarious tactics through media, through controlling rich sectors of the government. Then Caligastia, these negative entities are still on the planet and they can contact human beings. Yeah. So when you hear about these satanic societies deep within the government that are making contact with demons, we hypothesize they actually might be in contact with celestial personalities who are negative. And if Caligastia is talking to the leader of the Department of Defense or the leader of the science for the Pentagon, he's going to make them develop technology that prevents us from integrating with the Galactic Fed. Now, this isn't from the Urantia book or the Keys of Enoch, but I read it somewhere in my perusing of documents that part of one of the prerequisites to enter the Galactic Fed, you can't weaponize space. No member planet can bring weapons into space. That's like one of the big no-nos. And you have to take that away in order to integrate. So it looks like we're weaponizing space, right? So like if Caligastia is trying to prevent us from joining the Galactic Federation, he would try to get us to weaponize space because he knows that's one of the prerequisites. You know what I'm saying? So he's playing 6G chess to keep our planet separate. And this is part of that deep state, that manipulative techniques. And I'm going full conspiratorial. Obviously, not everybody's bad in government, but to think that the government bad parts of the government who have a lot of power could be in contact with negative entities that do not want Jesus's kingdom built on heaven, and our kingdom of heaven that Jesus talked about built on earth. So they're willing to distort and manipulate media, popular culture, and everything in order to prevent that. That's why you see so many satanic themes running through music videos. Everybody dressing in Luciferian type of aesthetics, horns, blood, black, white, red, the colors of Lucifer. That's getting pumped through media. And when we're looking at the USAID, that's where the number one tactic is to go to other countries and take over the media. 90% of Ukraine media outlets are created by them. They did that in Italy when they overthrew the Italian election. They did that in Cuba with Zenzanillo. Cuba would not allow American social media in there because they knew it could be used for statecraft. So the CIA said, okay, if we can't get Twitter in there, let's hire a Cuban national who has computer programming skill. Let's make Zenzanillo. Literally, it means hummingbird. It's a clone of Twitter, has the same icon and everything. You can retweet. And they got that imported into Cuba. And at first, they just started doing weather updates and like popular culture news.
Sports and
to get people subscribed, and it became a hot app. And then around 60,000 to 100,000 subscribers, they started slowly integrating also anti-government rhetoric, and it kept working, and it got them to overthrow their government. So like these are the types of tactics our government and deep state's willing to do to overthrow Cuba and stuff. Now think about how much negative celestials are willing to do to overthrow Earth. You know, they're using media, they're using black budget projects, possibly even using psionics in a militarized way to summon UAP for negative reasons, you know, that kind of shit. Weaponizing space, setting off nukes in space, which no one authorized. They did that on their own, created a huge hole in the ozone fucking layer. Like, and we talk about nukes having repercussions in the midway or seraphic dimensions. So it's like, this is my hypothesis, is we have to be aware of the deep state negative actors. And we also have to be aware that there are rebel entities that want to manipulate the environment, a la the Truman Show, to make sure that we never ever get reintegrated with the higher positive celestial beings. So going deep with it.
Do you speculate that a lot of the mystery Babylon symbolism we see in pop culture and Hollywood and all that could be signs or even symbolism in our old religions and stuff, like in the Vatican and all that, with the pine cone and all that? Do you speculate that could be symbolism to almost show, like, we're not completely aware of the symbolism, but it could be broadcasting to the rest of the cosmic world when they look back at us, like, yeah, this planet is owned. You know, it's like the Lucifer stamp. You know, like this is Lucifer territory here.
Yeah, I could definitely see that 100%. Trying to make their claim, make their mark. scare people away or just let people know, hey, we're here and we're gonna fight that fight until the very last person, you know. So, but they can't do anything if the majority of people band together and take back our planet. They're powerless to do anything. So they can exist if they want, as long as we don't listen to them and realize that we have the power. But it just takes us coming together. That was told to me before. Like, that's the whole good and evil, the battle for good and evil, because bad is willing to do things that good people aren't willing to do. If you have the timeline on the closed circuit, like beginning of timeline, end of timeline, throughout the majority of the timeline, the bad will always win until the very end when the good get fed up with it, and then you see a big boom, and the good just establishes dominance because they get away with doing bad because the good people aren't willing to go that nefarious. But then we get fed up with it and we kind of just stomp it out. So hopefully we're getting to that chapter.
That's right. And I really believe the solution is existing within this kind of matrix we live in, but living rightly and coming together and building strong communities, almost like bubbles of, like isolated bubbles of good within this crooked world, you know? I mean, like, it is kind of like the Matrix, you know, with Agent Smith and all that. We got this world we live in where we're all kind of assigned a value in this matrix. It's the system of control we all live in, but we don't have to completely submit to institutions. Institutions are supposed to be here to serve us, and when we kind of participate in them, well, it's like that quote Andrew Lazaro had posted in the comments that, you know, we get the government we deserve.
He says, call him Drew.
Drew, all right. It's just like Drew says. Is absolutely true. I mean, like, it's very unfortunate when you look in a lot of third world countries and they actually have crooked dictatorships, and the people often feel like there's nothing they can do about that, but they have the numbers. If they were able to rise up and actually orchestrate and organize, I mean, I believe on a global scale, we could actually have something like heaven on earth, the kingdom of heaven on earth. If we were to live right and actually, you know, build self-sustaining communities, take care of each other, rely less on big agriculture, you know, start cultivating our own food, do whatever we can to lift each other up, especially spiritually, because we're in a spiritual deficit here on this planet. I absolutely think it's possible, and I think that's what's most exciting about being in the information age. All of this is available to us now. All the dirty laundry is coming up to the surface and it's being exposed, you know, and so we can finally do with that information what we will, but we can also share the truth, and that's what's most important, is sharing uplifting insights on how we can properly live on this earth. And I can really see our generation, you know, by the time we're old, really setting the world in the right direction if a spiritual revolution can occur, you know, if we can ignite that fire within the hearts of all of our brothers here on earth, that we are a part of a loving universe and we can live right. We don't have to submit to fear and fear tactics.
Baller. We
I do
got
have
you, Drew. We got you. I saw that. My bad for calling you Andrew this entire time. Next time I let it slip, just slap me in the face to the screen, you know?
That's right. I got a little Urantia quote here.
T'Challa got some shit in the barrel or what?
Go ahead and
What's
drop,
T'Challa got?
Tyler. You can
drop that
drop your
shit.
quote here. I have a whole segment
Yes, please.
coming up on some stuff from one of our representatives, Anna Paulina Luna. So go ahead and tell us what you got
All
first.
right. I would love to see what you got, Taylor. So this is just paper 71. This little short bit here, development of the state. Move my camera out of the way here. The state is a useful evolution of civilization. It represents society's net gain from the ravages and sufferings of war. Even statecraft is merely the accumulated technique for adjusting the competitive contest of force between the struggling tribes and nations. The modern state is the institution which survived in the long struggle for group power. Superior power eventually prevailed, and it produced a creature effect, the state, together with the moral myth of the absolute obligation of the citizen to live and die for the state. But the state is not of divine genesis. It was not even produced by volitionally intelligent human action. It was purely an evolutionary institution and was wholly automatic in origin. So it is kind of this machinery that gets set in motion, and it's inevitable when we have large volumes of people working together. In the background, there is this regulative machinery, and one analogy was sort of like, in a divine sense, the Trinity. You have these three members of the Trinity, the Father, the Son, and the Spirit, but although the three of them can act divinely in their own unique facility, in their coordination, they create a corporate entity called the Trinity, and it is very much like they're the three executive heads of a corporation, and that corporation can act in its own right. It's not necessarily any one of the three members of it. It is the sum total of all three. Likewise, Think and Grow Rich had a really cool analogy of the mastermind. When you get multiple people together, they're all kind of on the same wavelength, thinking the same thoughts and all that. You can almost imagine what Napoleon Hill calls a mastermind forms. You can almost imagine a giant invisible floating brain above the heads of like all three of us here, for example. And it is the combined action of our minds. The more people you get on board like this, you create these social entities that have a lot more power and leverage than any one constituent person would have alone. Whoops. Now I got another little passage here. The ideals of statehood. The political or administrative form of a government is of little consequence provided it affords the essentials of civil progress, liberty, security, education, and social coordination. It is not what a state is, but what it does that determines the course of social evolution. And after all, no state can transcend the moral values of its citizenry as exemplified in their chosen leaders. Ignorance and selfishness will ensure the downfall of even the highest type of government. Much as it is to be regretted, national egotism has been essential to social survival. The chosen people doctrine has been a prime factor in tribal welding and nation building right on down to modern times. But no state can attain ideal levels of functioning until every form of intolerance is mastered. It is everlastingly inimical to human progress. And intolerance is best combated by the coordination of science, commerce, play, and religion. The ideal state functions under the impulse of three mighty coordinated drives. 1. Love loyalty derived from the realization of human brotherhood. 2. Intelligent patriotism based on wise ideals. 3. Cosmic insight interpreted in terms of planetary facts, needs, and goals. The laws of the ideal state are few in number, and they have passed out of the negativistic taboo age into the era of positive progress of individual liberty consequent upon enhanced self-control. The exalted state not only compels its citizens to work, but also entices them into profitable and uplifting utilization of the increasing leisure which results from toil liberation by the advancing machine age. Leisure must produce as well as consume. No society has progressed very far when it permits idleness or tolerates poverty. But poverty and dependence can never be eliminated if the defective and degenerate stocks are freely supported and permitted to reproduce without restraint.
Ooh. Damn.
A moral society should aim to preserve the self-respect of its citizenry and afford every normal individual adequate opportunity for self-realization. Such a plan of social achievement would yield a cultural society of the highest order. Social evolution should be encouraged by governmental supervision which exercises a minimum of regulative control. That state is best which coordinates most while governing least. The ideals of statehood must be attained by evolution, by the slow growth of civic consciousness, the recognition of the obligation and privilege of social service. At first, men assume the burdens of government as a duty, following the end of the administration of political spoilsmen, but later on they seek such ministry as a privilege, as the greatest honor. The status of any level of civilization is faithfully portrayed by the caliber of its citizens who volunteer to accept the responsibilities of statehood. In a real commonwealth, the business of governing cities and provinces is conducted by experts and is managed just as well, just as are all other forms of economic and commercial associations of people. In advanced states, political service is esteemed as the highest devotion of the citizenry. The greatest ambition of the wisest and noblest of citizens is to gain civil recognition to be elected or appointed to some position of governmental trust, and such governments confer their highest honors of recognition for service upon their civil and social servants. Honors are next bestowed in the order named upon philosophers, educators, scientists, industrialists, and militarists. Parents are duly rewarded by the excellency of their children, and purely religious leaders, being ambassadors of a spiritual kingdom, receive their real rewards in another world. So, all that's kind of
Amen.
amen to that. All that's really just to put a highlight on the premium of people being involved, the citizenry being involved actively in the world they live in. Now, I know a lot of government workers have been fired recently, and that's kind of controversial. Sucks for a lot of people, but all these people can get jobs in the public sector. Well, I guess I should say in the private sector, in business and corporations and all that, And I think that we really can move in the right direction if we're not relying too heavily on the government, because I mean, you can see a lot of government workers, their attitude when you go to the DMV, a lot of them are just kind of pissed off. Uh, it's I don't think it's very conductive to human progress. I think the government just kind of stagnates and crystallizes when we rely too heavily just on that as our primary institution.
Yeah. No welfare society, guys. We got to step it up and do it
Yeah.
ourselves. The government works for us. So, but if we're shitty, then it ain't going to be good. So, yeah, we all got to step it up and start contributing. Like, put in more than you take away in your lifetime. If everybody takes away more than they put in, then the quality of life is going to be shitty for everybody and your grandchildren, and their children's children, and so on. So
That's
it's
right.
really important to be active in society. That's what we're trying to create with the legacy. We're trying to get the app. So buy yourself a shirt so you can support getting that app created. But the app will hopefully get everybody on their mind, body, spirit progress by participating in your own mind, body, spirit progress with other people. You're contributing to that brotherhood of man, that planetary universal government. So that's pretty much what the future government's going to be. That's what the government is on other planets too, on advanced planets. It's the government's main sole purpose is to be utilized as a organization that propels the individual's mind, body, spirit progress. That's all government should be there for. Provide you the resources, the facilities, and the means to get you to hit your potential. So pretty much like a YMCA or an LA Fitness that anybody can join. You got a social security number, you can get into the building, you can pop up your mind, body, spirit progress routine and start getting after it with other people in your class at your stage. And we just start cranking out superhumans, cranking out super soldiers all across America, I believe we can do this in the United States. The United States has always been a cultural leader for the world.
Mm.
It sucks that we're exporting shitty culture, hypersexualization and materialism. We can still be the thought leaders and the cultural leaders, but let's do it for mind, body, spirit progress. Let's show the world this is how you use the government. Let's, we need a revolution V2. I'm even wearing the shirt today because of the episode. Those rebel scum. And it has George Washington going across the Delaware. Hell yeah, dog. I believe in America. I love this shit. It's my favorite country. I'm half black, half Mexican. One of my parents was a descendant of a slave, and my mom's from Mexico. So I'm as American as it gets, boy. I'm fucking.
That's right.
That's America, baby, and that's the beauty of it. And we all just amalgamate our cultures. It's not cultural appropriation. Cultural appropriation is the shit. If you like that culture so much, you want to start doing it, that's what the fuck it's about. Like, don't get mad that the person's acting black or acting Indian or appropriating culture. No, what the fuck? That's what we're supposed to be doing, weirdo.
That's why we have
America's
different
about.
races.
Exactly, and that's America right there. So, like, I'd rather pick a different slogan than "Make America Great Again," because just by itself, it's a good statement, but that's attached with the red and the MAGA and the Trump. But
In the past.
we need to think of something better than that, like make the planet celestial
Cosmic.
again. Some
Yeah,
phrase it,
there
you
you
know.
go.
Yeah, make the planet cosmic again, like because and we can do that in America. We can be the leaders. Like, can you imagine that? We're like, you know what? We're gonna use government for pure mind, body, spirit progress for everybody, and we're gonna make everybody dope. You're only as good as your culture. You're only as fast as your slowest man. Start getting kids in that shit from like Boy Scouts. The Boy Scout program is integrated into the government mind, body, spirit program. So from youth, from young, they're killing it. And you're like, damn, bro, look what those Americans are doing. They're adopting every culture, every religion, getting together, and they're growing every day mentally, physically, and spiritually. And that means we'll be a true social memory complex. I talk about it on other episodes. Like right now, when a scientific breakthrough happens, all the society's too stupid to process it, and we can't recreate the experiment. We just go, oh, okay, that's cool. News, then we go back to fucking buying Dunkin' Donuts. But if everybody was at a mind, body, spirit level where they can comprehend what the scientific breakthrough is, and they could be like, and then go back to their house and recreate it because they're that smart, and now everybody starts contributing to that breakthrough. So breakthroughs are a lot faster throughout the social strata. And we could become a true social memory complex because we're all capable of processing the same information. It's hard for us to be a social memory complex now because there's such a vast gap in between the smartest person and the dumbest person. We need to get everybody up to that level so that we're always making progress. We're always making breakthroughs. We're killing it. We're killing it. We're not hypersexualizing people. We're mating with each other based off trying to propel the species forward with our character, mind, body, spirit traits, as opposed to just fucking this girl because she has a nice ass or fucking this guy because he has diamond chains. You know, like we
Yeah.
need to elevate our entire value system. And this is how you become a cosmic civilization. There's a way to do this shit. There is a way to figure this life shit out. So let's do it. That's why we're creating this channel. That's why we're speaking the way we're speaking. And let's hope that with my desire and your guys' fucking undying spirit, we can actually change this planet. Seriously.
I believe it. 100%.
Tate, you're gonna smack us in the face with some
Yeah. All right.
videos or
Yeah.
what?
Let's I think I'm ready to get into this here. I've been pulling up some links. So yeah, talking about, governmental change and understanding truth amidst a variety of motivations. There is some interesting government news that also ties into the whole cosmic angle of extraterrestrial life. And if you're not aware, basically, there's a lot of members in Congress, specifically the security oversight committees, who are kind of like digging in and stepping up as pioneers to figure out what is this UFO? What are these UFO whistleblowers like? Are they? How do we figure out what's true about what they're saying? Because it's compelling because of the status, and they've had sort of two official public hearings about this and a lot of sort of private behind the door things. You have like big name like government senators like Chuck Schumer writing an amendment proposal bill, talking specifically about implementing a disclosure program on a government level to go through and pull out information from these classified programs, inform the public. These documents use terms like non-human intelligence, UFO, crash retrievals, non-human biologics. Like this is being written into law, like as we try to get to this truth. And in the past, this type of information has been like relegated to, basically relegated to conspiracy theories. And like there's been basically authors that have sort of written a lot of books on this UFO cover-up lore. But now it is reaching the mainstream, and your elected representatives are realizing that there is considerable truth to these claims. However, now they have to go through the process of sort of proving it. And that's where we're at with this whole process. And so the latest news in this span of disclosures and an attempt at seeking truth about some pretty big conspiracies, including the cover-up of extraterrestrial life, is this announcement. So this is, let's see, House Oversight Republicans announce creation of new task force on declassification of federal secrets. And so let me see if I can get to the announcement kind of here. So, well, one, let me go back here. This right here is Representative Anna Paulina Luna, and she has been one of these individuals who has really stepped forward and been very vocal about the importance of UAP transparency, UFO transparency, getting to the bottom of this claim that from David Grush and these other government whistleblowers that we have non-human advanced technology craft and that we are reverse engineering it. And so she is like one of like out of 10 kind of representatives that have really stepped up to the plate to talk about this and do interviews. And so now she has been instantiated onto a new task force that involves the declassification of a couple different topics. And so these topics, I think this is probably a good kind of overview to kind of go through here, because it gives you a little bit of context, and I am going to hone in then on the UFO angle here, which is part of this. So I'm going to share my screen for you guys so you know what I'm looking at here. Okay. So here's the Committee on Oversight and Governmental Reform website. And this is a press release about a video sort of interview. It was like a 16-minute thing. I'm not going to play clips from that, but I think we can get the idea just from looking at this. So
Such
House
an
Committee...
odd choice, gray on white for text.
What's that? Oh, gray on white. Yeah, it's a little hard to see. Let me zoom in. I think I can zoom in here.
Nice.
Get the text a little bigger. So, House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform Chairman James Comer announced the establishment of a task force titled Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets. The task force mission is to examine the declassification of materials in the public interest and will be led by Representative Anna Paulina Luna. This announcement follows President Trump's executive order entitled Declassification of Records Concerning the Assassinations of President John F. Kennedy, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, and the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. So that was something that President Trump expressed interest that he was going to do. Even on the Joe Rogan podcast, he said that in his first term, he sat down and had a meeting and said he wanted to release records on JFK, and he was advised against it because there were still people alive during those operations and that it could harm some of their personal security. There's a little more to it. Check out the Joe Rogan episode if you want to hear his clip on that. But the sort of vibe that I got was that if he was to release those documents, it would be somewhat demoralizing to sort of know the truth behind the JFK assassination, and that the truth, would be maybe a little dark. And so, ultimately, Trump did not release that in his first term, but coming around into his second term, he has sort of doubled down on allowing the public to see what's there. And I don't even think he didn't really look too deep into what was there. In his first term, he just asked the advisors and they said, let's please not. But this time he's coming around and he's saying, let's make it happen. And so he has signed that executive order to get that going. And Anna Paulina Luna is a task force member assigned to enforce and activate and actually initiate this process. So here's this quote. For too long, the federal government has kept information of public interest classified, and the American people are demanding greater transparency. This secrecy has sowed distrust in our institutions. The task force will build on the Trump administration's efforts to declassify records of national importance and ensure Americans get the answers they deserve. Representative Luna is committed to shining a light on the truth and ending the era of secrecy. It's time to let the sunlight in and finally provide answers the American public has long demanded. The federal government has been hiding information from Americans for decades. We have spent years seeking information
God.
on the assassinations of President Kennedy, Senator Kennedy, Reverend King, and other government secrets without success. It is time to give Americans answers they deserve, which is why I'm honored to lead this bipartisan task force that seeks truth and transparency. We will also investigate UAPs, USOs, that's unidentified aerial
Hey.
phenomena,
Nice.
and undersea. What is USO?
Unidentified submerged objects.
Unidentified submerged objects. The Epstein client list, COVID-19
Yes.
origins, and the 9/11 files.
What? I wasn't expecting that. COVID and 9/11. Damn, Anna Paulina got that freaking
might-
tinfoil on.
Right, and we might get the full Epstein list.
Yeah, and so let's see. So yeah,
I heard they're gonna have a hard time with the Kennedy files because I guess nothing like legally, even in the documents of the Warren Commission, the official committee that was investigating it from the federal government, it says that these files cannot be opened until everybody who is involved in this is dead. So
I'm thinking
Can't they just
that
redact those names,
the
though?
executive order is attempting to overwrite that
Overruling
because that
that,
was
yeah.
the reason why he did not release those documents in his first term.
the first place.
However, now
Damn, that'd be
he's
sick, dog.
yeah. So I'm quite sure that there might be still some redactions.
Or those people are dead. It's been 6 years, right, since his last, or 4 years since his last
Yeah,
presidency.
maybe.
Yeah.
I mean, why protect these people if they really got nothing to hide, you know? Like if they're involved in some really crooked stuff, it should be
Nothing
known.
to hide.
Yeah, so now I want to jump over to this PDF, which is basically just a letter that was sent out about this topic. And so this letter actually went to the Honorable Chris Wright, Secretary, U.S. Department of Energy, which has U.S. Department of
Secret
Energy has been
Squirrel
speculated
organization.
to have some knowledge on classifications of UFO and UAP. So this was a letter written by James Comer, chairman of the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, and Anna Paulina Luna. And so the quote that I want to pick out of this is this last part here. So the Committee on Oversight and Government Reform is the principal oversight committee in the U.S. House of Representatives and has broad authority to investigate any matter at any time under House Rule X. Further, pursuant to Committee Rule 14, the Task Force on the Declassification of Federal Secrets is authorized to examine the declassification and release of documents pertaining to 1. Assassination of John F. Kennedy, 2. Assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, 3. Martin Luther King, and 4. And the tip of the iceberg, the favorite topic on this channel, number 4, unidentified anomalous phenomena and the existence of extraterrestrial life and other such matters at the discretion of the chairman. Thank you for your attention to this important
I
request.
got the hair standing up on me right now. Oh yeah.
So again, I'd like to reiterate for everyone watching this stream currently and in the future that aliens
5
are
days ago.
no longer off the table. It is no longer taboo. It is not something that exists or was invented by Hollywood. This topic has been held secret to the highest levels of secrecy for a very long time, and Congress people have been made aware of this. Just how deep this topic goes, how deep the rabbit hole goes. They know because they've had a lot of trusted active military contractors and people with firsthand experience with these topics, giving them a top level overview that, you know, at its basic premise basically says, yes, we are not alone. We have known this since as early as potentially the 1950s, and we've recovered a lot of evidence for this, but it's been so locked deep, and people like David Grusher are going as far as saying it's outright wrong and unconstitutional the way that this stuff has been hidden and is currently being obscured from Congress members and UAP task force missions. And also the public at large should also know about this basic fact that we are not alone. So looking at these PDFs and these documents really kind of like, hopefully that gives you some like face-to-face contact that this is happening. This is going on right now. This is unfolding. So hopefully you will be ready as we build up slowly and slowly to the actual official, disclosure where everyone's talking about it on the news. You go into your school and your classmates are talking about it, and your parents are asking you, "Hey, have you heard about this alien thing?" And you go to church and the pastor is suddenly talking about how we need to have a conversation about extraterrestrial life and the
Yeah.
Bible. And there's going to be all these conversations that eventually arise out of this. And it's really going to cause a big worldview change. Now, again, it's not going to be necessarily one big moment, but you can tap into this now and be prepared. And this, to me, this is the most exciting world news that is happening, among all the other conflicts
Oh,
and,
yeah.
stuff that really kind of brings you down and feels non-inspirational. This is a real inspiration. The search for truth to really get to the bottom of this. So looks like they wrote a bunch of letters actually to I think there's like 11 different individuals that they wrote a letter to, but that's that letter. And now let me see here. Let's see what next. I guess I also want to talk about here. This is a relevant PDF that has released kind of recently, January 27, 2025, because not only is the government sort of getting keyed into the reality of UFOs and extraterrestrial life, but the scientific paradigm is also changing and destigmatizing on this topic. So this PDF is called The New Science of Unidentified Aerospace Undersea Phenomena, UAP. And it has like over 10 different authors, and some of these are heavy hitters in the UFO research field who have written a lot of books. For example, the names I recognize here are Richard Dolan,
Nolan.
Ryan Graves, Gary P. Nolan. Let's see, Jacques Vallée. Those are the couple that I noticed. I'm sure these other guys and gals are
Tedesco
legit.
brothers. Fuck yeah.
Are they in there?
I gotta
Tedesco
look this
brothers?
up.
Gerald T. Yeah,
Yep.
Gerald T. Tedesco, John T. Tedesco. Yeah, they were
Science.
investigating New Jersey drones, and they even found
Yeah.
an anomaly which suggested that some of these drones have gravitational lensing around them, suggesting that the propulsion
Those guys are
system
sick, dude.
is related to anti-gravity. So this
That's
is
crazy. So all these
100.
documents came out in the past week, huh?
Yep, yeah, they're pretty
Yeah, this is
recent.
recent.
Yeah, and this,
Oh,
this
I
is a
gotta dive into this.
150 page PDF that essentially
Oh yeah.
reviews like around 20 historical UFO cases from around the world, and what I see it as is a sort of like get you up to speed, and it's written towards the scientific minded world of like, look, here's some of the best cases, like, go over this first so like what some of this history is. And here's some notes on a bit of an AI summary that I pulled. Something that they point out in this PDF is that UAP characteristics and observations, there's these 5 observables is what they call them of UAP. So positive lift without flight surfaces. So flight surfaces is referencing like wings on a plane. So these UAP have positive lift, going into the air, being able to go up, not just like a glider per se, and without lift surfaces, without wings, using aerodynamics to fly on the wind, like a bird. Number 2 is sudden acceleration. So, the ability to go from hovering to moving really fast. Number 3 is hypersonic speeds without conventional signatures. Hypersonic speeds, anyone know how fast that is? Is that like breaking the sound barrier? Hypersonic?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
yeah.
without
Faster than sound.
conventional signatures is probably referencing like heat signatures and engines and like fuel burning. Those
Or
are
like
It's
not
probably
even
no, what is it? Sound wave, shock wave?
sound.
yeah, like
okay.
not even hearing a sonic boom. I've heard that
Sonic boom.
described.
There you go.
Don't even
Yeah.
hear a
Yeah,
sonic
yeah.
boom when these things take off.
Wow. They're hypersonic and don't create a sonic boom. What the fuck?
And
Because they're in a time bubble.
number 4 is transmedium travel, so air, space, and water. And number 5 is cloaking or low observability. And so, yeah, they lay out a lot of like information if you kind of want a serious scientific perspective from a lot of different authors who are up to speed on this. And then the last thing I'll say about here is that this paper also addresses the UFO stigma within the scientific community, which has been built over many years. So why is there a stigma? Why, when you go to a scientist and say, you know, what do you think about UFOs? Like, why does that seem kind of taboo, or why do they kind of think it's unserious subject? And you might say like, oh, it's because there's not enough evidence. However, that's not the case. This PDF presents 20 pieces of cases of evidence. So I think that the reason this is not mainstream and taken serious is actually possibly for some other reasons involving historical dismissal and stigma by the sort of news media or things like Project Blue Book. So the things that they specifically mention in this document is that for decades, UFOs are dismissed as pseudoscience, conspiracy theories, and mere misidentifications of natural or man-made phenomena. And the scientific community and government authorities actively discourage serious study, which has led to the secrecy, ridicule, and suppression of evidence, which also then leads to a fear for scientists to engage in this because it can harm their reputations, limit funding opportunities, or lead to professional ostracization. And so there was actually...
Yeah, that terrible tactic. It's like we're in high school. Just ostracize them. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? Are you reading from a spot that you're not sharing with us?
This isn't the PDF.
Yeah, it's still showing
this is some summary. I mean, I could share it, but I'm almost done here. This is just a summary of elements from this PDF. So what I want to mention here is government's role in suppressing scientific interest. So there's two events that are sort of bullet pointed in this PDF. One was called the Robertson Panel in 1953, which was a CIA-led committee which recommended debunking UFO reports and discouraging public interest to prevent mass hysteria. Okay, so if you think that there's not like the secret men in black trying to silence you to talk about UFOs, like check out the Robertson Panel, because that's kind of what that is. So the second one is the Condon Report, 1969.
It's just like big Karen energy, you know? Like to me, it's like my biggest pet peeve is when people use their fear and anxiety to control you.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Perfect example, like I was building something at my work, when we first moved into the building, pretty high, like super high shelves. I'm a framer. I was working 6-story hotels. I was a carpenter for 4 years. I'm used to doing, crazy shit, catwalking up on the high stories. And I was only a couple shelves up and building the shelving unit, and 2 girls came up to me, just regular, no carpentry experience. And they're like, you should get down from there. You should really get down from there. You might hurt yourself. And I just started laughing. I was like, thank you for your consideration. I just kept working. And they were like trying to get serious. And I was like, I hate when people use their fear to try to control my actions. Like, that's not cool. And it's a way of usurping authority in the situation or asserting authority. And it's like, it's the Karen move. It's like, put on your mask, everybody's gonna get sick. Like, they try to control you through their fear. And it's like what you just read. We're not gonna tell the public because of mass hysteria. Oh, because you're afraid that this could possibly happen. Now I have to fucking adhere to your rules. Like, that's such a gross tactic.
Yeah.
It's a conversational, psychological tactic to take control and seize control of the situation so that now you must adhere to what I say because I have fear. And I hate that, dude. It's such a dirty trick, and people need to be more conscious of it.
Yeah, I've heard the analogy that when the Dead Sea Scrolls were discovered in the early 1900s, I believe there was an act to suppress the information out of fear that mass hysteria would ensue because it would conflict with biblical understanding and all that. And then fast forward some years, we all just think it's fascinating, it didn't like destroy our faith or something like that.
If by mass hysteria they mean a Renaissance period of enlightened conversation and revelation.
Yeah.
Like, damn. But sorry, J. Joel, I got that connection with it.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. The whole fear-based inspiration, like even religion has used that for a long time to try and basically motivate you to follow God. And it's basically this you follow God out of fear, out of great fear. And yet what
Yeah,
Jesus taught
Yeah.
was that you follow God out of the love of God, and the love
exactly.
that comes from actually using the perception of how God perceives the universe in your interaction with people, and that does not come from a fear-based perspective. So that's a very human element that is sort of common, and it's part of our animal origins, I think. But
Mm.
it doesn't have to be our future. It's like literally the lowest method of motivation. It just comes from the
Yeah.
need to survive and the fear of like pain, and knowing that we are mortal and that we can sort of die. But look, we're not going to die by looking at UFOs seriously. So let's chill out.
Yeah.
So the Condon report was in 1969, and this was funded by the U.S. Air Force, concluded that UFO research was not scientifically useful despite the fact that many of its researchers found unexplained cases. So yeah, those are two sort of official, you could
Hmm.
say disinformation campaigns, or it created the stigma within the science field alongside Project Blue Book. Um, you know, and like I said, one of the lead scientists on Project Blue Book actually was basically a believer, on his own time when he wrote his own books about it. You could tell that he knew that this was legitimate, despite the official, closing out of the government program Blue Book. So yeah, definitely, we'll probably put this PDF link. I can actually
Oh yeah,
drop
I
it
can
in
read
the
through that.
chat right now for everyone.
Cool.
So that's
Yeah, what's
in the
funny is
YouTube chat.
Hynek, the
Cool.
leader of Blue Book, he actually got hired secretly. He didn't know he was like hired to disprove the theories. He got hired
Mm.
legitimately. He was a real scientist that didn't believe this shit. And he got hired by the Air Force. The Air Force liked him because, oh, this guy doesn't believe this shit. And then during his entire Blue Book mission,
He
he
was
started,
sold.
wait a second. And then that actually sold him and he became a believer. Yeah. And then he also realized the Air Force was like saying shady shit to him, feeding weird
Mm.
information, like just spin this narrative. Um, yeah, but that's funny. I forgot you said something else that made me want to say something, but I totally forgot.
Um, yeah, I forget, but I do have one last thing that I want to go over. This is one of the cosmic
Okay.
resources that we have covered on this channel before, and this is called the Ra contact, the Law of One. So I just shared
Ooh,
another window with you guys because
I am raw.
early I think early on, in my journey into the understanding the reality of UFOs and extraterrestrial life and extraterrestrial
Mm.
interaction with our planet, um, it can get a little bit tiring to kind of like go through that all. And what I found was that the more inspiring material was actually the sort of direct contact with these alien beings and the information that they bring through. Because I think it's tiresome to like only look at this nuts and bolts aspect. It's like, okay, I get it. There are craft with non-human beings. Next step is what what are these non-human beings saying? What do they believe? How do they see the universe? What can
Mm.
we learn from them? If they're more advanced, like I wonder if we can learn stuff from them, about their perspective on the cosmos. Like I want to know. I want to get to the meat of the situation instead of spending 10 years to like just convince me that UFOs and aliens are real. Like I got over that pretty
Absolutely.
quick. And maybe call it, my spiritual intuition. I knew that there was something profound about my worldview and the way I would live my daily life and view the cosmos if I understood some of these questions about the meaning of extraterrestrials' existence.
Mm.
And in order to find the meaning about their existence, I found books that claimed to contain, the actual words from extraterrestrials. And one of the best contact events is called the Law of One, and the synopsis of the Law of One is that So it's also known as the raw material. And these are actually teachings transmitted between 1981 and 1984 through a process called tuned trance telepathy. And so this was a group of about 3 people, and one of them, Carla, was entering a deep meditative state in order to relay messages from an entity identifying itself as Ra. And Ra claimed to actually be the collective social memory complex, or you say collective consciousness, of a civilization that evolved on Venus 2.6 billion years ago. So that's a whole different age of our solar system, in which they say that life was supported on Venus, and they were that civilization. And so what this is they're kind of like an older brother or older sister within our solar life system, and they exist. They exist in, I guess, now what we would term probably the afterlife worlds. And they present a whole philosophy and set of spiritual teachings about the unity of all existence. And so this is crazy interesting. And they say that, the reason they says the Ra contact, how is this connected to Ra of Egypt? Well, they actually say that they made contact with the people of Egypt and were teaching them. And at one point, they were actually incarnated as visible extraterrestrial beings to try and propagate some higher teachings. However, it caused a big distortion in the consciousness of humanity at the time. And they eventually they left having a physical presence because they were basically seen as like gods, and that's not what they were trying to teach. So they've been doing a bunch of other things in what they call the realm of thought on this planet. So I'm going to get into a little bit of the UFO claims here, but Tyler, are you frozen? I think we lost your video. So see if you can troubleshoot that. But yeah, let's get into what's called session 8 from the Ra contact. And these are questions to Ra about UFOs, the reality of UFOs and extraterrestrial landings, on the planet. So first highlight here is that this is Ra saying, your peoples have, at this time space present, the technological achievement, if you would call that, of being able to create and fly the shape and type of craft known to you as UFOs. Unfortunately, for the social memory complex vibratory rate of your peoples, these devices are not intended for the service of mankind, but for potential destructive use. Okay. Next highlight would be, how did the United States learn of the technology to build these vehicles? And Ra responds, there was a mind-body-spirit complex known to your people by the name of Nikola. He's talking about Nikola Tesla. This entity departed the illusion of physical incarnation, that's what he's saying, and the papers containing the necessary understandings were taken by the people serving the security of National Divisional Complex, National Security State. Thus, your people became privy to the basic technology.
That was Trump's uncle. Trump's uncle directly was the one in charge of that task force.
That's very interesting. Maybe some connections there. Maybe that'll come back up in this administration. Trump is definitely the kind of guy to tout that. Once Trump learns about this, he might be like, well, I'll tell you, my uncle actually had some interesting information that have come about Nikola Tesla in the development of these anti-gravity technologies. So that's I imagine.
I think he said it on Joe Rogan.
He said it on Joe Rogan.
Uncle. Yeah, he said his uncle was the first person to enter Nikola Tesla's apartment with all of his documents after he died.
Whoa.
And he got to touch everything, held anything, and like a couple of things went like super top secret classified that they didn't talk about.
Oh, fascinating.
And I guess his uncle said like he had like an extreme weapon that he was not allowed to talk about. Like a futuristic super weapon.
Yeah. Well,
I just I just got to say on that note, like, although we can have mistrust for billionaires, it is these billionaires that actually have the means to make these changes in society and in government. You know, they have all that money back in them, so they have the leverage. Uh, Everyone else, we got to go through the proper channels, working our way through government slowly, get through the bureaucratic sludge. But if you have enough leverage, you can just kind of get in there, and that's exactly what they're doing.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, and so here's some quotes actually about the weaponry, which can also be developed from Nicola's technology and other, I guess, development. So, um, okay, the craft are perhaps misnamed in some instances. It would be more appropriate to consider them as weaponry. The energy used in that of the field of electromagnetic energy, which polarizes the Earth's sphere. The weaponry is of two basic kinds, that which is called by your peoples psychotronic, and that which is called by your peoples particle beam. The amount of destruction which is contained in this technology is considerable, and the weapons have been used in many cases to alter weather patterns and enhance the vibratory change which engulfs your planet at the time.
Damn.
How have they been able to keep this a secret? Why aren't these craft in use for transport? The governments of each of your societal division illusions desire to refrain from publicity so that the surprise may be retained in case of hostile action from what your people call enemies. Classic, classic national security, right? We get that. Questioner, how many of these craft does the U.S. have? I am Ra. The United States has 573 at this time. They are in the process of adding to this number.
Oh.
Remember, this was written in the 80s. What is the maximum speed of one of these craft? The maximum speed of these craft is equal to the Earth energy squared. This field varies. The limit is approximately 1/2 the light speed, as you would call it. This is due to imperfections in design.
Ooh. So they can't even go light speed yet.
Yeah, let's unfold this because
as of the 80s.
Yeah, as of the 80s. So this is actually interesting because he mentioned that it's dealing with electromagnetic energy of the Earth's sphere. So I've sort of gotten this concept that there's two types of UFOs and anti-gravity.
Yeah.
One that only works on the planet, and another one that can actually go interstellar and sort of break the light speed in order to do a sort of instant travel across the universe. And in the 80s, we did not necessarily have the light speed vehicles. We had recovered some from alien civilizations, but we weren't able to reverse engineer it due to some of the material science limitations, the power to actually power the craft. And so what we had was a sort of version of anti-gravity. Now, again, half the speed of light is pretty lit, pretty fast. That's still like full spectrum planetary dominance in terms of craft that can operate on the Earth. And of course, then there's speculation, well, from the 1980s to now, have we figured out the interstellar anti-gravity vehicle? So that's interesting as well. So the technology your peoples possess at this time is capable of resolving each and every limitation which plagues your social memory complex at this present nexus of experience. However, the concerns of some of your beings with distortions towards what you would call powerful energy cause these solutions to be withheld until the solutions are so needed that those with the distortion can then become further distorted in the direction of power. So that's a little wordy. Ra has a specific way of teaching or of talking that is can be hard to kind of get around. There's a style. However, but what I get from that is he's saying that I guess eventually this will be released if it fits the interest of the global powers that be. So he's like sort of like saying it's secret, but if it is pushed into the public, it's still going to be dominated by those with the distortion of power. So that's very unfortunate. But these same types of conversations is coming up with these military whistleblowers and in Congress. If we're told that we have advanced technological and energy systems that could potentially even like just power the entire United States grid. Like, why not implement that? That's like a valid question, especially when we spent a lot of taxpayer money to develop these technologies. But the counter argument from the national security state will always be that if we were to release this, it could be weaponized by other state actors, or even, I guess, weaponized by U.S. peoples themselves. So it's a real pickle that
Yeah.
can only be solved by the spiritual consciousness sort of raising on the planet. But Tyler, go ahead. You were saying something.
Yeah, I imagine we still got a ways to go because as long as there's a perception that we have threats from adversaries, we have other nations that we can't trust with this technology, we can't trust their motives or their style of governing, or as long as we have fear of terrorists or anything like that, this information ain't coming out. But it's wild to consider even without considering anti-gravity or zero-point energy, just the amount of funding and stuff that goes into something like NASA for space exploration, if that amount of work was put into restoring balance within a nation, um, I mean, we really could resolve all conflicts. But unfortunately, a lot of our conflicts are like ideological, and we just kind of butt heads, and we can't agree with other people. So we still got a ways to go, I think, in our evolution as a species to get on the same page.
Yeah, and so I think that's it for the quotes here, and I also dropped a link for that in the
Cool.
chat for you guys, the LL research where you can read that full paper, because we consider
Nice.
these cosmic resources. These are messages from our extraterrestrial brothers and sisters that can help us get a grip on sort of this weird reality and what we need to do to make changes for the better. This book is very spiritual, philosophical, but also has claims about, unknown facts about, UFOs and other sort of maybe what has been considered esoteric knowledge or
Mm,
religious content that has been sort of obscured and lost over the centuries. So very interesting material. Um,
nice.
yeah, so that's the law of one, and that pretty much concludes my segment here on
Cool.
what's going on in
Cool,
the
cool.
government and where you should go to learn some stuff.
Good stuff, Taylor.
Hell yeah.
Yeah, I'm.
That's dope.
I want to know, D-Bake, if you got any more clips or anything. I got actually two more little clips here and a little something else I could get into. Um, but I want to know what do you got?
Just a couple thoughts on what Taylor was reading. That's about it. That last paragraph really resonated with me, talking about like how the powers that be that control this technology, they're going to keep it a secret, and even if they do reveal it, it's only going to be so that they can gain more power, which is also another distortion, which kind of sucks. And then that also brought me perfect segue to a quote I wanted to bring up sometime in this
Nice.
conversation. I don't know exactly when, but it's from another cosmic resource, as Taylor puts it. From the Urantia book, we keep pulling from it. You starting to get the gist.
We got
Urantia,
it.
Kizi, all that. Oh, we got it all. Um, this is from
We have it all.
173, 173, 111.
Nice.
So this part comes from Jesus in the temple when he flips the tables. When he flips the tables with the money changers.
Mm.
Yeah, Jesus got a little militant too. He wasn't just peaceful, love and light hippie. He actually went into the temple and picked up a whip, started a stampede, and flipped over the tables of all the businessmen who were in the temple and ran them all out. So, everybody knows those memes. Everybody understands that event and that episode, I hope. If not, then I guess this is your first time learning about it. So check it out. So, this cleansing of the temple discloses the master's attitude towards commercializing the practices of religion, as well as his detestation of all forms of unfairness and profiteering at the expense of the poor and the unlearned. This episode also demonstrates that Jesus did not look with approval upon the refusal to employ force to protect the majority of any given human group against the unfair and enslaving practices of unjust minorities who
Mm-hmm.
may be able to entrench themselves behind political, financial, or ecclesiastical power. Shrewd, wicked, and designing men are not to be permitted to organize themselves for the exploitation and oppression of those who, because of their idealism, are not disposed to resort to force for self-protection or for the furtherance of their laudable life projects. So that's from one of the highest sources that we got. It's called the Urantia book, and that's Jesus talking. Jesus talking
Yeah.
that he looked down upon people who didn't use force to protect themselves from these small minority groups, such as these military and industrial complex elites, all the people who are profiteering from USAID, all of these, the cabal, the deep state, all these people that are manipulating resources, government agencies for their own gain and to use us as cattle to like kind of keep us as just consumers. That shouldn't happen. And Jesus
Don't be
himself
complacent.
says that he looked down upon you if you didn't use force to protect yourself. This is not part of the cosmos. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. So just another viewpoint on how Jesus thought and tying it back to the whole USAID black budget projects. We should be taking this more seriously. If the president of the local universe is telling you to stand up and do, then you cannot go wrong. Stand up and do. That's it.
That's right. We got to hold our ground and stand for our values and our principles. Too much of our culture here in America and in Western culture in general and across the world is devoid of value. Like people are just living their daily life, focused on trivial phenomenon and pop culture and all that. But like when we have a culture of value, we have something worth protecting. It's absolutely worth standing for. And D-Bake, I'm glad you read that. That's actually a perfect segue into the last bit of content I have here. So I got something else from this Mike Benz interview. I didn't listen to the Joe Rogan one. I might check that out too. I know he's kind of making his rounds, but on the topic of USAID and the corrupt dispersion of taxpayer money and all that, this guy definitely knows what he's talking about, and he can speak on it more eloquently than probably most of us ever could. You can tell he really stresses his language to try to word everything as concisely as possible. But this, I thought, was a wild example here. Oh, whoops. Let me turn on the sound.
Oh, sorry. You might have to restart it here. I didn't hit your stream yet, so I am.
Oh, you're good. It hasn't even got to the
Got
juicy
it.
part
Okay,
yet.
I got it. So go ahead and you go
All
back
right.
to wherever you were going to play it from.
This is good right here.
You can make a very compelling argument. The reason that Americans have the standard of life that they do and have the advantages and privileges of the world's most powerful nation that it does. You can make a very, very compelling argument that that the rise of America to the preeminent world power in the 20th century would not have been remotely possible without this blob apparatus. I come back to this concept of no blob, no pencils. If you can't even make a pencil in this country unless you have a mechanism to be able to influence foreign governments if they nationalize their graphite mines or the export of their gum trees in Malaysia or the ability to potentially make inroads or liaise with or change the minds of unions that go on strike that impact U.S. national interest. This is the reason that our corporations are so powerful. They rely on the battering ram of the blob. In the early 1970s, when in Chile, when there was an attempt to nationalize the bottling industry, before we ran that coup was jointly coordinated, not just between the head of the CIA, but with the chairman of the Pepsi Cola company. Pepsi met with the head of the CIA, Don Kendall, met with Helms, and this is all declassified. You read a great Guardian report, write up on this, or any of the major national security think tanks. Basically, Pepsi's bottling operations in South America were being threatened. The chairman of Pepsi, Don Kendall, arranged a meeting with Henry Kissinger and said, "Hey, we need to stop this from happening." Kissinger then put him in touch with the head of the CIA. Pepsi, the head of the CIA, and the State Department's media mogul in Chile all met to jointly coordinate the best way to take down the government, and take it down, indeed we did.
Now, that's a pretty wild example, just showing the interplay between corporations and our intelligence agencies. I have another wild little clip here.
Who got the money? Well, one second. If you could, right before you play this one, I am probably going to make my exit now.
All right.
Want to go see. I got some family shit I got to take care of, some lessons.
Absolutely.
So I'm probably gonna check that out. You guys can close it out. So to the streamers, to everybody watching this later, I hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys can take these concepts and apply it to your life. Walk away from the live stream thinking, okay, it's not just, I mean, there are just nefarious government actors, but this is just part of the process to bring the planet to that level where we can get to like cosmic government, cosmic society. So don't get too down on yourself. Participate in the mission, and together I think we will prevail. So that's it.
Absolutely.
I love you guys. Thanks for tuning in. Don't forget to subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Press that like button. It helps us get the message to the front page. And until next Sunday, I'll see you later. D-Bake out. Live long and prosper.
Take it easy. Good talking with you.
And D-Bake, I was gonna tell him that we'll check,
He's gone.
see if he has any time later to check in on some stuff. But let's end out the stream here. So go ahead, get your clip, and then we'll do an outro. I'll play the outro music, and we'll call it.
All right. Yeah, my kind of closing thoughts here. So this is kind of wild. It was $500 billion that kind of went missing. This was around 2008, 2009, right after the financial crisis, when everyone's kind of struggling. And meanwhile, there's a lot of money getting misallocated here.
Institutions in Europe and other countries.
Which ones?
I don't know.
$500 billion, and you don't know who got the money?
The loans go to the central banks, and they then put them out to their institutions to try to bring down short-term interest rates in dollar markets around the world.
Well, let's start with which central banks got the money.
There are 14 of them, which are listed I'm sure they're listed in here somewhere.
All right, so who actually made that decision to hand out $1 trillion that way? $500 billion. Who made that decision?
The Federal Open Market Committee.
Okay, and was it done at one time or in a series of meetings?
A series of meetings.
And under what legal authority?
We have a long-standing legal authority to do swaps with other central banks. It's not an emergency authority of any kind.
Anything specific about it?
Yeah, that's his lawyer.
Do you know the...
Anybody?
My counsel says Section 14 of the Federal Reserve Act.
So that's an example, a pretty startling example there of the misallocation of money. And really, all I have to say about that, I got a short little Urantia book quote here on the profit motive. Present-day profit-motivated economics is doomed unless profit motives can be augmented by service motives. Ruthless competition based on narrow-minded self-interest is ultimately destructive of even those things which it seeks to maintain. Exclusive and self-serving profit motivation is incompatible with Christian ideals, much more incompatible with the teachings of Jesus. In economics, profit motivation is to service motivation what fear is to love in religion. But the profit motive must not be suddenly destroyed or removed. It keeps many otherwise slothful mortals hard at work. It is not necessary, however, that the social energy arouser be forever selfish in its objectives. The profit motive of economic activities is altogether base and wholly unworthy of an advanced order of society. Nevertheless, it is an indispensable factor throughout the earlier phases of civilization. Profit motivation must not be taken away from men until they have firmly possessed themselves of superior types of non-profit motives for economic striving and social serving. The transcendent urges of superlative wisdom, intriguing brotherhood, and excellency of spiritual attainment. And with that, I think we have our answer there. I mean, like, something like 0-point energy, which could benefit the entire world, it would be too disruptive for the economics of our world. You know, it would disrupt the entire energy sector and all that. Same with if we all grew our own food, it would be disruptive to the agriculture business. And the examples go on and on. But really, it just comes down to us being more self-reliant and just looking out for each other, taking care of each other, and building a better world for us to live in so we don't have to rely solely on the profit motive to get things done.
Absolutely. Thank you for pulling up that wise fire, that wisdom from the celestials. And yeah, so I don't know. I think that was a great stream. I think we covered a lot of topics here, talking about governmental things. The last thing I want to pitch here is remember that we got legacy t-shirts up, and check out the description for the link. They're about $30 each, and we make about a $9 profit on each of these shirts that you buy. So please, this is a great way to support the legacy Foundation for Human Progress and get some sick swag as well for you to wear. So I'm also going to drop the link in the chat. Check out the store. There's a couple different designs on the shirt. And yeah, I don't know. Do you have anything else to say, Tyler?
I just wanted to say, while we're talking about the profit motive, it's hilarious because, we do still operate in this world. We do still have to try to accumulate enough funds to actually make an impact. And so the purpose of money is it is literally value. When you pour money into something, you're pouring value into something. So we just need to be mindful of what we're pouring our value into, what we are collectively narrowing our human focus on that we want to uplift and bring to the surface. So if y'all are into this program of what we're up to here, please do feel free to support us. We'll make good use of your support. We'll keep pumping out quality content to keep y'all updated on cosmic updates.
Awesome. You can listen to the outro music, Tyler, if you tune into my screen. So trying to liven up the streams. I don't know how the volume is for you guys, but
sounds good.
Thanks everyone for joining in, and check out those documents. Check out the shirts. Subscribe to the channel. And check out the Law of One, the Raw Contact. Check out the Rancher book. Anything else? Any other shout outs?
I'll just say that whole series of papers from the Urantia book, paper 71, is like 69 through 62, is really interesting, absolutely worth checking out. Yeah, I mean, it's good stuff. Section 2, the evolution of representative government, absolutely worth reading through.
Right on. All right.